Hello and welcome to a new episode of SportsDay Rangers. I'm John Blake.
And I'm a very jet-lagged Evan Grant.
The trade deadline is come and gone, and Chris Young and company doubled down on the team's biggest strength in the pitching.
Rangers added relievers Danny Coulombe from the Twins and Phil Maton from the Cardinals, but the surprise acquisition was Diamondback starter Merrill Kelly.
This week on the podcast, we'll talk to another starting pitcher who knows something about getting traded middle of the season, John Burkett. Rangers acquired him down the stretch in 1996, and he helped the team to its first division title. I will contend we wouldn't have won without him.
The second week of voting for the top regular season moments in Rangers history has also wrapped up. Find out which moments advanced to our Final Four later in the archives in Arlington.
SportsDay Rangers is our weekly spinoff of the Dallas Morning News SportsDay Insider podcast. You can find it in the SportsDay Insider feed wherever you consume the podcast you consume.
And people are gobbling this up. John's old friend, Randy Adamak of the Seattle Mariners, wanted to know how he could download it, and he's not a podcast guy. So don't be the last to download SportsDay Insider. If you want to interact with this show, you can find each of us on X. John is at Ranger Blake, and I'm at Evan_P_Grant. You can also reach out to the Dallas Morning News on any of the paper's social media channels.
So Evan is back, as he mentioned. He arrived this morning at 8 a.m. back in the Metroplex after a long road trip for both him and the Rangers. The Rangers went just 2-5 in Anaheim and Seattle, losing 2 of 3 to the Angels, 3 of 4 to the Mariners in a big series, and right now find themselves, as we tape this, 4.5 back in the AL West and 2 back for that third wild card spot, Evan. And you described it, I believe, as a weird series in Seattle, and
it's a weird series in Seattle, a weird trip to the West Coast. I did ask Bruce Bochy before the game on Sunday. I said, "Is this the weirdest team you've ever managed?" And he just kind of laughed for 30 seconds and never really got to an answer. But I'm taking that in the affirmative. I have no idea what to make of this team week in and week out. You just don't know which version you're going to get.
And does it all kind of hinge on the offense in terms of not being able to put the team in a position to win, to take leads that are safe? Or, I mean, that's the thing that kind of it just looks at. They'll have a big inning, and then it just never materializes again.
Well, look, when you play good defense and you pitch well, you're going to be in every game. But it doesn't leave you any room for margin of error. That's where the offense comes in. And so, you have games like the game in Anaheim where the Rangers lost, which was just a wacky, weird, crazy game. That's a once-a-season kind of game.
That was your Harry Potter?
That was the Harry Potter game. It was Harry Potter night in Anaheim. They also had Harry Potter night in Seattle, so the Rangers were definitely cursed on this trip. But I when you don't leave yourself any margin for error, John, it's like anything that goes wrong is going to cost you. As we saw in the 9th inning on Sunday, the Rangers were trying to rally back because they had, fallen behind, trying to rally back. They get a break, what looks like, when J.P. Crawford bobbles a ball, and Adolis Garcia doesn't go hard into second base, assuming, I guess, that he didn't think Crawford was ever going to get the handle on the ball and throw to second, and the play would just be dead. Crawford caught the ball in midair as he was bobbling it and threw to second, and first out of the inning at second base. Instead of first and second with no outs, you've got a runner on first and 1 out, and you've now got to have a pinch runner try and steal second base with everybody in the park.
That's 2 outs.
Knowing that it's going to happen. And Sam Haggerty made a good slide. I mean, he kind of avoided the tag, but the momentum also took him past the base. One guy went too slow into the base. One guy went a little bit too hard. And one pitch later, the game's over when Wyatt Langford strikes out. And so there's just not any margin for error with this team night in and night out.
Now, when you talk to players, do you get that impression? I mean, I'm talking about even the pitching to some extent, that we've got to, and it's hard to play tentative in Major League Baseball. And a good club, it's really difficult, but you can kind of see it. You're right. I mean, it's one, and the Rangers have been defensively and pitching, you can't ask for much more in a season than this club has done. But again, it comes back to not having that margin for error.
Yeah, there just is zero margin for error. When they do put up offense consistently in a game, they run away with games, and they look really, really good. And most nights, it is a struggle to capitalize on opportunities. Through the first 2 games in Seattle, they had scored in 1 of 18 innings. They had that 3-run inning on Friday that stood to win the game.
Right.
But then you had no margin for error once again.
Right.
So they had opportunities to capitalize on late in that game and didn't. And so these are the things that cost teams precious games. In the case of the Mariners, it cost them a chance to be at least tied for the wild card. Cost them a chance to have picked up ground on Houston, which has not played well. Has lost them the tiebreaker with the Mariners. They've got to win all 3 against the Yankees this week to try and have any chance at winning a secondary tiebreaker with the Yankees if they end up in a wild card spot with the Yankees. So, the Rangers have just put themselves in a really difficult position where, once again, they've got to play perfect baseball down the stretch, and they haven't shown that for any length of time.
Well, let's look a little bit at the trade deadline, which came down on Thursday night. The Rangers added pitching with Merrill Kelly, with Danny Coulombe, with Phil Maton. And Coulombe, Maton, and Kelly all look really good this weekend. Maton and Kelly have a lot of postseason experience. Kelly was outstanding in the 23 postseason when they advanced. And just looking at DeGrom a little bit, maybe starting to run into an innings thing, and Leiter being a rookie. And what do you think of the moves?
Well, I think the moves were all fine, and there's 2 ways to go about things, and I always go back to my example from this was when the Rangers lost out on signing Cliff Lee after 2010, and they really wanted to re-sign Cliff Lee for their pitching staff. John Daniels pivoted and said, well, the best way to help the pitching staff then is to go get a Gold Glover in the infield to make outs, and they signed Adrian Beltre, and it worked out really well. This was a case where the Rangers didn't have the capital to go out and get a controllable, significant bat. You saw what was moved for some of the closers that were on the market, particularly the controllable closer market, and I don't think the Rangers had the player capital there. So what they did was they pivoted to middle relievers, to the significant leverage arms, not the end of the game, but leverage arms, and to say, look, we do know that there are some issues potentially creeping up with the rotation in terms of innings limits and all of that. I don't want to say innings limits, but pushing innings farther than they've been for a while. And so what they did was they put together what was their best package, really. I thought it was realistically the best package they had to offer, and were able to get Merrill Kelly. I don't think the Rangers, there was, after Sebastian Walcott, there's this giant gap in the organization and talent right now.
Especially when it comes to position players.
Especially with position players. And if you wanted to go and get, let's say, Eugenio Suarez, you were going to need to include a position player in that deal, and that's why Seattle got him. So the Rangers put together the best realistic package they had, and I think that they made an area where they're really good as fortified as it can be. But as we saw, basically the night after the deadline passed, which was that Friday night game, they had situations that called for a good right-handed hitter off the bench. They had nobody to really turn to. Didn't manufacture any runs late in that game when they had 2 opportunities with runners in scoring position and less than 2 outs. And then they had to go to an inexperienced closer, Robert Garcia, to try and finish off the game. And I think Garcia is going through anything that a first-time closer goes through. Is pennant race baseball, closing is hard enough. And then when you're doing it in the heat of a pennant race and playing from behind, there's an awful lot of pressure in that. And I think Robert has felt that a little bit. So it did kind of underscore the public feeling, which was, well, why didn't you strengthen your weaknesses? But I think the issue here was the Rangers just didn't have the ability to do that realistically.
Well, this is a 9-game homestand coming up. As I said, we're taping. It's 3 with the Yankees, 3 with the Philadelphia Phillies, which isn't easy, and then 3 with the Diamondbacks, so we'll see what happens. But talking about pitching and mid-season acquisitions. Our guest this week on the podcast is right-hander John Burkett. Rangers traded for Burkett from the Florida Marlins, who I believe you were covering at the time, in August of 1996. And he pitched really well for the Rangers down the stretch and won two really big starts, his last two regular season starts, when it was going off the tracks a little bit, and really kind of secured that title. And again, then won the only Rangers playoff game through the 2009 season.
Be sure to stick around after the interview to find out which 4 moments advanced from the round of 8 in our fan vote to determine the greatest regular season moment in Rangers history. We've set up a bracket of the franchise's top moments, and each week you can vote on the matchups until you crown the most iconic Rangers regular season moment, and, of course, earn free stuff in the process, because really that's all that life is about, is free stuff.
Well, our special guest today on Sports Day, Rangers pitched 15 seasons in the big leagues for the Giants, Marlins, where he put up with Evan Grant for a while, Rangers, Braves, and Boston Red Sox. The Rangers, and we got to get into this a little bit too, Evan. The Rangers actually acquired him twice. They traded for him in December of 94.
That's right.
And we non-tendered him in 95 after all those strike rules changed. And then Doug Melvin got him back in August of 96, where I think most fans in the day think if we hadn't gotten John Burkett, we probably wouldn't have won that division. Won 166 games overall, two-time All-Star, and had a 22-win season with the Giants back in 1993. And we welcome, he's getting ready to go to the Tournament of Champions bowling in Morgantown, West Virginia, which I have fond memories of from Georgetown beating West Virginia twice in the college basketball tournament. But he's in his own bowling alley, and we welcome John Burkett.
How's it going, everybody?
Good.
Berkey, pan over so everybody can see the bowling alley
we want to see
in your
that.
house. This is in your house.
Yes, it's about lower level, yeah.
Look at this.
And then
How sweet is that?
a pro shop right there. There's a pro shop right there where I can drill bowling balls.
How much do you practice between tournaments or whatever? Do you spend a lot of time down there practicing?
Well, this morning I threw 100 shots this morning. So when I'm getting ready for a tournament, I practice more than when I'm not, because I was never hurt when I was playing baseball. It was amazing, right? I was pretty lucky, but since then I've had quite a few injuries, so I got to keep my bullets to a minimum. And so if I'm not bowling anything competitively, I tend to, tone down the practicing.
You've done shoulder damage bowling?
Well, I had shoulder damage whenever I was playing baseball, but I just never had to have surgery.
Right.
But when I got done, I like 3 years after I finished, I had surgery. But I had a ski accident where I blew out my ACL, MCL. Yeah, they say to stay active, after you retire. But it's no problem for me, because I had a skiing accident where I blew out my right knee. Then I went mountain biking with my son, and I broke my wrist, and so that's been a problem. And then I've had my ankle tendon snapped on me, but that was just normal wear and tear, I guess, from pitching all those years. And then a wrist. I have a scapholunate ligament tear on my right wrist that they can't fix. Kind of the Joe Burrow thing.
Maybe you should have just stayed playing baseball. That would have been better for your health.
Yeah, it's been crazy. But hey, it comes with age, I guess.
Before we get into baseball again, you have bowled all your life, right? Where did the bowling thing come from?
Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so in the wintertime there wasn't a whole lot to do, and so I picked up bowling when I was a young kid. My dad bowled, so I started bowling probably when I was 5, 6. Well, I bowled junior leagues competitively when I was 8. That was the first year you could do it. So when I joined Little League, I joined junior bowling leagues, which was kind of the same thing. So bowling in the winter and baseball in the summer was my whole life.
When you were pitching, did certain teams put restrictions on you bowling in the off season? I'm trying to remember. I don't remember with the Rangers.
Yeah, you probably remember this story. I probably told you, John. You got amazing memory. But you probably remember the story of when I was in San Francisco and Al Rosen. I got invited to bowl a PBA event my rookie year. I had a good rookie season in San Francisco, and then I got a letter in the mail, in my fan mail, and I was one that answers my fan mail. So fortunately, I was able to see that the PBA had sent me a letter. I opened the letter, and it was an invitation to the Pinole Valley Open in January of 1991. And so I accepted without even thinking about it. I bowled my whole life. So I never thought about, the Giants getting upset about it. But Al Rosen never really liked me for some reason. And so he made it a point to let me know that that wasn't something I was permitted to do. But it was after the fact. So one of those things where you ask for forgiveness, not permission, kind of worked out in my favor.
Yeah.
And Berkey, I just to establish one fact, you are bowling on tour now, right?
I am. So I'm on the senior bowling tour, bowling with guys like Pete Weber and Norm Duke and Brian Voss and Parker Bone III. People probably have heard of some of those guys. And, I just, all my life, I wanted to bowl, find out if I could compete with these guys. And I found out that I am able to compete, and I actually have 2 national titles. I just won one 3 weeks ago.
That's awesome.
Well, let's talk about 96. So you go 5-2 in 10 starts down the stretch at a time when we really needed a lift in our starting rotation.
But it was that first start, right? I mean, it
was the first start in Toronto, 6-hit shutout, and then the last 2 starts, Berkey, against the Angels. The one on Saturday when we had that excruciating loss on Friday night on the Garrett Anderson double to win it then when our lead was down to 1 game. And then you and Kenny Hill came back and won those 2 starts back-to-back that kind of gave us a little cushion. But did you feel pressure coming into a pennant race?
So the night that I got traded was the night that I remember because I was packing my stuff, and Gil Heredia gave up the home run in Detroit, right? And yes. And so the Rangers had I don't know what happened the next game. I can't remember because I was traveling and all that, but I pitched Sunday in Toronto with a 1-game lead. And to answer your question about the pressure, I was coming from 18 games back with the Marlins. We were 18 games out of first place, I remember. That's why I remember with the Rangers, they were 1 game back after they lost that night. So I gained 17 games in the standings. And I was super excited, Obviously, like Bobby was one of the reasons. I mean, it was so cool to get back with him. I really enjoyed being around him. And so I was excited about it. And just to be on a team that was competitive, I was just thankful, to be out of Florida, which the next year they win the World Series, of course. But the Florida Marlins did.
As competitive as you are as both a competitive bowler and a major leaguer, I do assume that it wasn't so much pressure you felt, but excitement when the trade was made.
I was super excited to be involved or be thrown into this situation. Obviously, there's a little nerves there and you want to make an impact right away. And fortunately, I mean, sometimes you walk out on the mound and you just have your stuff that day. And that was one of the best games I ever pitched in my life. Was that game in Toronto. I think it was a 6-hit shutout on a Sunday getaway day. So everybody was super happy. There's nothing for people out there watching this. There's nothing like winning on getaway day in the big leagues. And, everybody's happy on the airplane and having a couple cocktails and traveling to the next city. So it's a great atmosphere. And so when you're able to come in and pitch a game like that, you're accepted right away. So that was a big key in my comfort, getting in the comfort zone for me.
I'm just curious, Berkey, because the deadline passed, and this is still under baseball's old rules because you had the August trade period as well. You had to clear waivers, as you said, and then were traded. Were you kind of crestfallen that you didn't get traded at the deadline? I mean, what was that week in between the deadline and when you were traded to the Rangers?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I heard tons of talk, and I mean, it was every day. I was hearing things in the clubhouse from a couple people that had connections to the front office, and never happened. So I'd kind of forgotten about it. And then all of a sudden I come in one day women are listening to this and watching this today, you'll be able to sympathize or put yourself in these shoes. I had, I think, 16-month-old twins and a 16-month-old twins and a 3-month daughter, 4-month-old daughter. No, 5-month-old daughter. And Friday night is when I got traded. I came into the clubhouse and they said, you got traded to Texas and they want you to pitch on Sunday afternoon.
In
So I had
Toronto.
to call my wife. I had to call my wife and say, pack them up and take them to Texas, you know? And, so she's got 3 kids, 3 little ones. And fortunately, her sister was around and could help her transport them to Texas.
Yeah, that's
But
that's
it
one
was a
element
rough-
of the trade deadline we don't ever talk
Right.
about entirely, but what families go through.
It's
Right.
tough, yeah. Especially when you have to pitch in another country.
Right.
So
Yes.
that game in Anaheim in September of that year. What were your thoughts going? Because I remember walking into the clubhouse that Saturday, and I just remember Johnny Oates, the manager, was very calm and everything. There didn't seem to be a real sense of panic on that team. Is that the way you kind of remember it going into that game?
I remember coming in that clubhouse and it was very, very quiet.
Right.
It was very down, you know, and I got out of there as quickly as I could because I didn't want to really, be around that because everybody was down, man. And I left thinking to myself, I'm going to turn this around. I mean, I loved having that responsibility. And that was what my mindset was from that time on. I didn't want to really talk to anybody. I didn't want to hear any negative talk. I was like, I'm going to come out there and, give our team a chance to win. And it was a very good team. So you didn't have to do a whole lot usually. It was a star-studded team, that 96 team. So it was super impressive to see those guys, the talent on that ball club, and just to be a part of it was definitely an honor. And I felt fortunate to be in that situation.
So for the first 49 years of this franchise's existence, we had one playoff win, Evan.
Yep.
And that was game 1 of the division series in New York in 1996. And Berkey got the ball. And through a 10-hit complete game, didn't walk anybody, gave up just 2 runs.
A 10-hit complete game in the playoffs.
Yep, in Yankee Stadium. And
Yeah, it was stressful.
And Juan hit a home run. And at that point, our bullpen as played out,
Right.
obviously in games 2 and 3 especially, was running on fumes. So Berkey, I mean, for him to step up and do that in the first playoff game in this team's history was unbelievable. And what do you remember about that night?
Well, first of all, I remember I've never been to Yankee Stadium before, and I'm a little bit of a baseball historian, so I showed up at the ballpark early so I could walk around and take in all the the monuments and all that stuff, and so I got to suck that all in, and I was excited to take part, in the playoff game there at Yankee Stadium. But I mean, what an atmosphere that place is. I mean, it was just amazing. People were throwing stuff at me during warm-ups, and so it was a very pleasant experience.
So
But but the game, then I remember what sticks out to me is I think I had first and second nobody out. Might have been second and third nobody out, and Dean Palmer made a fantastic play down the line that ended up making minimizing the damage in that inning. I think I gave up 1 run in the first, and so that gave me a lot of confidence moving forward. That play was a huge play. I mean, it's 2-0 with nobody out. If that ball gets by him, and he made an unbelievable play, just a parallel dive, toward the line.
So do you remember anything like? I'm curious. Like the atmosphere is insane, and every time you talk to a pitcher, they're so locked in on the game. They don't appreciate what's going on around them, or they need to focus. They need to filter that out. Do you remember anything about your emotions or where your head was throughout that game?
I mean, everybody says it's like any other game, which it is kind of. You can only pitch the way you know how to pitch, but I just always liked that responsibility, even though my talents probably didn't say that I should like that responsibility. I wasn't the most gifted guy, but I always believed in myself, so I didn't have that issue of like worrying about things or You know, and I mean, you guys probably know I walked out on the field like probably 20 minutes before the game, maybe 25 minutes before the game. I used to drive Leo Mazzoni crazy when I went to Atlanta because those guys would come out in the dugout like an hour before the game and sit next to him and talk to him. And whenever I first started a game there, you know, I showed up. I walked out on the field like 20 minutes before the game. I threw like 10 minutes of long toss, and then I, you know, maybe 15 pitches in the bullpen, and I was ready. So it didn't take me long. And I didn't like thinking about the game too much. I like to just go out there and now I'm ready to go. You know, I was loose in the clubhouse. You guys saw me. You know, I messed around the clubhouse. I didn't take it too seriously. But then when the game started, I was ready to go.
I always think, Evan, what it would have been like if we could have gotten to a Game 5 in that series, and Berkey would have been back on the mound at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah,
those were in the days where you went 2-2-1. You had to go back for Game 5.
Right.
But unfortunately, we never got to that point. So.
And I was supposed to pitch the next game every series. I was supposed to pitch Game 5. Then I was supposed to pitch Game 4. And then I was supposed to pitch Game 4. And we got swept, you know? So I pitched Game 1 of the 96 series, and I never saw the mound again.
Yeah. Well,
we went 1-9 against the Yankees.
Yeah, that was quite the run by the Yankees.
It was.
Had some unfortunate timing there. I do, and I do have two things to say before we let this go, because I've had some great experiences covering John Burkett. In '96, when I was still covering the Marlins, I went out to Phoenix. He was living in Phoenix at the time, and the whole story was going to be about, you know, the Marlins quote unquote ace was a bowler, and so we bowled. And I'm still trying to remember if it was 150 or 100 pins, whatever he spotted me, he still beat me in handily. And I wasn't a terrible bowler at that point in time, but I certainly wasn't great. He beat me.
It was probably 100. I don't think I would give you 150 because I wouldn't want to lose. I want to make sure I can cover.
You're a wise gambler. And the other thing that always stuck with me about John Burkett's humility was this. I think this was 95, and you know what a disastrous season 95 was with the delayed start and all that other stuff. The Marlins got off to a terrible start, and I think right before the All-Star break, the team was in St. Louis, and it was the weekend before the break. This is 30 years ago, John, right? And so the players, the media, the coaches all somehow ended up in the same bar drinking that night. And there were some women talking to John over there, and John's just a normal looking guy, and I'm standing over there, and the women, I don't even know if you remember this, but because you had a couple of cocktails, and the women said to him, "You're not a baseball player. Prove it if you are. How much do you get paid?"
Oh. Yeah.
And Berkey just smiled, and he was a little bit tipsy, and he goes, "Let's just put it this way. I'm happily overpaid."
Yeah. I think that's about enough, Evan.
Oh,
I think we're going to
I remember that. Yeah.
I think we should let Berkey go.
I remember that.
And go back and do a little bowling. So get ready. Well, good luck this week in Morgantown, West Virginia. And we appreciate the time. We really do. And again, 96, you were still in Florida, but John Burkett will be a name associated with that team for all time.
Oh, it was a huge contribution. Berkey, thanks for joining us. It's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Next time
we'll do a great job.
Next time we'll get you on and have a Hall of Fame argument.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love those. I used to do that with Perry Manazian all the time. So I enjoy talking about baseball history. So yeah, we can do that sometime.
We're 2 weeks into our fan vote to determine the top regular season moment in Rangers history. We started with 16 2 weeks ago, and now we're the drum roll, we're down to the final four.
Final four. The moments were selected by the editors at the Dallas Morning News, which John wants to make sure he had nothing to do with. They were seeded 1 through 16. In the second round, the moments that advanced were Kenny Rogers' perfect game, which beat, in an upset, I guess, Nolan Ryan's punch of Robin Ventura, the video of which I watched again this morning. At some point in time, I want to talk to you about Billy Hatcher's role in there. Nolan Ryan's seventh no-hitter did advance, and this, to me, is a real upset over Josh Hamilton's 4-home run game in Baltimore, because it's the greatest single feat I've ever seen. Also advancing, the Rangers' first AL West title clincher, over Josh Hamilton's home run derby performance. So Josh is unfortunately a 2-time loser here today. And then the final one, Nolan Ryan's 5,000 strikeout over Adrian Beltre's 3,000th hit in 2017.
And I'll have to give again the credit to the Morning News editors in terms of the seeding. The only upset to this point, and it's a small one, is Josh's 4-homer game was a 4 seed. Nolan's 7th no-hitter was a 5 seed. Otherwise, the 1, 2, and 3 seeds have all advanced to the quarterfinals. So,
do you agree with Nolan's win over Josh?
That's a tough one for me. Again, both of them, and both of them kind of came out of the blue. I mean, Nolan, we'll talk about this maybe. Today's Archives in Arlington is going to be on the 5,000 strikeout. But the 7th no-hitter, it was just amazing. It was Arlington Appreciation Night. Nolan at this point, is 42 years old. I'm sorry, 44 years old. He's 44 years old pitching. It was an incredible feat. But again, I give the fans credit. They've done a really good job to this point. But you can find the bracket to vote here in the semifinals at dallasnews.com/sports/Rangers. Voting for each round is now live for the semis and will last until 11:50 this coming Sunday night, which I believe is the 10th. And we'll reveal the winners for the finalists next week on the podcast.
You can find the bracket at dallasnews.com/sports/Rangers. All you need to do is enter your email address and you'll be ready to vote. You can join the vote at any stage and are eligible to vote on all current and future rounds, which there are one future round after this. So register. You're also eligible for prizes at that point.
There will be some very nice prizes. You might even get a tour of the ballpark with me, which I'm not sure if that's first prize or not. So the Archives in Arlington, we're down to 4 moments. And it's interesting because, Nolan Ryan here, 30-plus years later, is 2 of the 4 final moments. And the first one of those took place on August 22nd, 1999, his 5,000 strikeout. And I tell this story on if you ever take a tour of the ballpark with me, you can go to Globe Life Field website and you can sign up for a tour if you want. The 5,000 strikeout really was the first huge national moment in this team's history. And we went back.
Well, it was the first huge moment that had build-up, right? I mean, there were Nolan's fight with Ventura ended up, that was later.
Well, that was later. This was the first moment of Nolan's
tenure
career in 1989.
But it also had build-up because there was this countdown to 5,000.
Right. And entering the season, he was 225 strikeouts shy of 5,000, and he had 228 total strikeouts the year before.
Right.
So, at the beginning of the year it was going to be touch and go, but then he had a ridiculous April and was striking out an average of 12 to 13 guys a game. And at that point, we decided we were going to put this strikeout list together, which in those days, you didn't have Baseball Reference or StatPass or any of this, and you had to basically compile this by hand after getting all of his score sheets from 600 appearances dating back to 1966. And we did all of that, and it became a huge, at the time, a big media thing nationally. USA Today printed the list. Larry Kelly was my assistant, and I did interviews. Nolan would get asked about it. And, we found out some great stuff. His final totals were, 1,176 batters total. He struck out 61 players at least 15 times. Claudell Washington was by far and away the winner. He struck out 39 times, and he did a huge number of interviews that summer. And players wanted to see if they were on the list. And it went from Hank Aaron to Paul Zuvella. So that was the buildup. And he needed 6 strikeouts on that night. And a funny story that involves our producer, Chris Blake. Chris was born on August 7th of 1989. I was actually in Toronto, but that's a story for another day. But he was born 6 weeks early, folks. It was the last trip
The
I was
buried
gonna
lead
make.
here, people, is that John was not at his son's birth.
But correct.
But despite all of that, Chris has grown up to be a fine man.
And a good producer. So he had to stay in the hospital a few weeks because he was a preemie, right? So one of the dates that was projected for him originally to come home was August 22nd. I told my wife, I said, there's no way he can come home on August 22nd. That's the night Nolan's going for his 5,000 strikeouts. So I'm out. So as it turned out, he had to
You
stay.
and Harriet have been married how long now?
47 years.
47 years. And I'm not even Catholic, but I am going to ask that the Catholic Church or the Greek Orthodox Church beatify her. Because you basically told her, no, my son, my premature baby, my first child, is not coming home because I need to be at Nolan's Star.
Well, and as it worked out, he had to stay in just a little longer. And again, he's grown up to be huge, 6 feet and everything, so it was never an issue. But, it was a national event. We had all the national baseball writers in. Monday Night Baseball on ABC was on ABC at that point. They came in and did the game, and we had created this huge buildup. And in the fifth inning, he strikes out Ricky Henderson for number 5,000. Of course, in typical Ranger fashion, we lost the game 2-0. Ruben Sierra made a very poor play in right field, which I think might have hurt his chances of winning the MVP that year.
Details, schmetails.
We were beaten by Bob Welch. The A's were really good that year. They won the World Series, right?
Yes.
In the earthquake year. But it was a great moment, and again, like Evan says, it was really the first moment in club history that had the build-up. So for me, this is a tough moment to beat, and I'm just 96. It's going up against 1996, the first. And I think now we're down to some really tough choices with that one, and then Kenny.
So our semifinals are Kenny's perfect game versus Nolan's 7th no-hitter, right?
Right.
And the first AL West title versus Nolan's 5,000 strikeouts. So those are your two semifinal matchups in this.
And again, I think I'm not going to give my opinions on this, but again, it's an interesting bracket, and I'm really, really pleased the way it's kind of shaken out. And again, the seeds, which I had nothing to do with. If I did, I would be taking credit now. But I have nothing to do with the seeds. The editors did a great job, and it's going to be really interesting to see who comes out on top.
Yeah. The weird thing here is, so like the Ryan versus Nolan and the first AL West title versus the 5,000 strikeouts. So all of those were 1996 or prior. I got here in 97. So I have no background with any of these events personally. So I'll just be interested. I'll be an interested bystander in all this, but it's going to be really, really interesting to see.
So we'll see what happens next week. Vote. We're looking forward to see what you guys decide here to get us to our final two. And with that, we want to thank you for joining us for Sports Day Rangers this week.
Don't forget to check out more sports content from the Dallas Morning News, Sports Day Insider, my podcast with columnist Kevin Sherrington and a Sports Day staffer guest, appears in the same Sports Day Insider feed every week. So if you sign up for the Sports Day Insider, you will get both the Sports Day Insider and Sports Day Ranger and vice versa.
If you have any questions for us, you can ask us on X. And remember, go to dallasnews.com/sports/Rangers to vote for your favorite moment in club history. And voting for the semifinals, the Final Four, is open now.
Thanks to John Burkett for joining us from his bowling alley this week. Once again, thanks to our producer, Chris Blake, for overcoming his newborn status, his traumatized newborn status, to have a great career as our podcast producer. And John and I will talk to y'all next week.